Do you guys want to sew a winter coat with me? This video started so serious, and then at the end I'm just like throwing sequins in the air. Hi, I'm Martha. Welcome to my sewing studio. Today is part 1 of sewing a wool winter coat. I love sewing winter coats. It's one of my favorite projects. So every winter I kind of allow myself the treat of sewing 1 or 2 coats. And this year I'd like to get an early start on that. Today I'm going to talk through all of the materials required to make yourself a tailored wool coat. And I think it's helpful to gather them all together and have them in one place before you begin. I've sewn myself many wool coats at this point. There's always more to learn and there's always more techniques to incorporate. And so this year I'm going to be adding some sequins. I have made myself black coat, a camel coat, a leopard coat, a red coat, a blaze orange coat to wear during hunting season, a purple coat. Oh, my red coat's like probably my favorite one. Did I already mention that one? A polka dot coat. Ooh, I have like an iridescent brocade coat that I made. Oh, I made this coat. My point is, I've made a lot of coats and for me it doesn't get old. And every time I sew one and I post about it on Instagram, people kind of want to see even more detail than I'm able to show there. So that's what we're doing this year. I'm going to show you every step. Obviously this is part 1 and I'm not sure how many parts there will be in this series because my plan is to show you the process of making a coat. If you've watched my other sew along videos, you'll have an idea of kind of how I do that. But as we reach certain important steps, such as bound buttonholes or pad stitching the collar, I want to sort of hit pause and make a tutorial video for that step. So I think there's going to be some tutorial videos as well as sort of the story of making the whole coat and how it all gets put together and the decisions behind each step. So how long will this take? I don't know, like 3 or 4 weeks, which is pretty fast when you consider that we're making a wool coat. Okay, so today we're gonna look at materials and then the next video will be looking at the pattern and looking at the pattern tissue and the instructions. I just realized I never showed you what pattern I'm using. I'm going to be sewing Vogue Patterns 8450. This is a vintage pattern, obviously, and I have looked online and I've never been able to find another copy of this. If you're looking for a similar pattern, this is a raglan sleeve coat with sort of a swingy A-line shape. I will look for some other patterns that capture sort of the base notes of this, but you would need to probably enlarge the collar and cuffs to get this exact look. I think though, if you want to sew a coat like this and you've never sewn a coat before, I would start with something a little bit more basic. So maybe I'll do a roundup of raglan sleeve wool coat patterns. There are quite a few out there. It's a really fun shape to sew and it's easy to wear. Let's get into looking at the materials. I've shown you this before and I'm very excited to actually use it. This is an alpaca boucle fabric that I got in a fabric swap. It's a really lofty, beautiful, kind of squishy boucle fabric. It has gorgeous texture. I think it's going to be very warm. This is our jumping off point and this material is going to inform all the other materials we use. So whatever your wool is, that is going to inform what your lining fabric should look and feel like, what your interfacings should feel like, what your buttons should look like, all of that stuff. So let's move over to the work table and we're going to look through all the materials used because it's kind of actually a lot of materials go into making a coat. All right. You can see this table is littered with materials because I have started pulling things out. I've got my alpaca here and I'm probably going to be referring to this as wool throughout these videos. So if I say wool, I mean this fabric, and because it came from a swap, I don't actually know its exact content. There might be wool in it, but I'm kind of just calling it that because wool coat rolls off the tongue a little more easily than alpaca boucle coat. There it is. Now this fabric is sort of loosely woven because it's made with these curly boucle yarns. So I need to consider that when I'm planning out the other materials. One thing I know for sure is I will not be using a fusible interfacing because if I were to press and iron this really heavily, all of this lofty boucle would get compressed and flattened and overpressed and it would look terrible. So I need to use a sew-in interfacing. And for that, I want something really stable with 0 stretch. And I'm going to be using this 100% cotton muslin. It's unbleached. This is a relatively soft muslin. It's not that sort of crispy, papery kind. It definitely has a bit more softness to it, but it's very, very stable. It doesn't really stretch in any direction, especially on the grain or on the cross grain, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So this is just from my deep stash, clearly a scrap from something else. I think I have just enough. When you're choosing materials, materials, like your interfacing, you should take one layer of it and put it underneath your fabric and kind of feel it. How does that feel? I think it feels really good. I've also shown you guys this lining before. It is a densely woven polyester satin. It's gonna go on the inside of this. I love the textural contrast of these materials, and I also think that because this is so densely woven, it will hold in a lot of warmth against this more loosely woven boucle. So these are gonna be kind of my main materials. I've got my boucle, my lining, and then I have this interfacing, but we're gonna have some other interfacings too. Because I've sewn many coats, I know that I have a personal preference for hair canvas in all collars. I find that a collar without it ends up floppy. It doesn't fold or roll the way that I want it to, and it doesn't really hold up over time. So to me, a hair canvas collar interfacing is essential, especially when you're using a really gorgeous, expensive, precious fabric. Why not go the extra mile and use these beautiful techniques to make it last? In my stash, I had 2 weights of hair canvas. I think this one's a little bit too heavy, especially for the oversized nature of the collar in this design, but I am gonna keep it out, you know, just in case I might change my mind down the road. But I have this light hair canvas, and I actually already looked at my pattern pieces, and I have like exactly enough to just squeeze it out. So we're gonna use this really lightweight hair canvas just in the collar and the cuff. But wait, there's more. I love this kind of project where I have to keep going around the studio like a little scavenger hunt, finding things, because I like to have all my materials ready and I don't have to be stressed out. So we're pulling out a few more materials than we might actually need, but that's a good thing. I can just put it away if I don't use it, you know? Okay, so up next, I've pulled out this cotton twill tape. This is a super non-stretch twill tape. There are a few places that you can use this in a coat. The one that comes to mind for me really right away is, especially if you're making a coat with a lapel type of collar, you would put it at the break or where the collar folds or rolls. You could also use it to reinforce a seam that you don't want to get stretched out. And a fabric like wool has a lot of natural ability to like stretch and felt. You could steam it. You know, it can get distorted deliberately or on accident. And having something like this in your back pocket can be helpful. So I don't know if I'm going to use it in this project, but I'll have it out just in case. Okay, then I went looking for thread, and I'm a stickler for thread that matches my fabric. And I'm so in luck because I have this box of thread from Metler. They sent me this as a gift, and it's like truly the exact same color. This thread is called Cycle, so it's made out of recycled polyester, so that's pretty cool. So I will use that. And then I also have here silk thread. I could use the silk thread in basting, or I'll probably use this for my pad stitching. There are a few places this could come in handy. Ooh, and then finally buttons, but I'll meet you back at the table for that. And then I mentioned that I was going to be embellishing this coat, so let's go back over there and I will show you that as well. I already owned buttons that I was going to use for this coat. I bought them last year in Midtown, and they're nice buttons, but my ideas have changed, my lining color has changed, whatever. I have a different idea now, and so I did order a few buttons online. After I was at the New York Sheep and Wool Festival, there were buttons I kept thinking about from the button lady there, and they were out of my budget, honestly. But I hopped on eBay, and I thought I can find a lesser version that costs less. Let's open these together and see what's inside. Oh, these are really nice. Wow, okay. Right off the bat, these feel like a winner. Those are nice. These are carved shell, mother of pearl. Beautiful color. I love that they have the 2 sets of holes. Oh, these are quite nice. Okay, up next. Okay, wow. These are quite thick. These are also carved shell, and you can see on the back of them sort of the exterior layer of the shell, whereas these come from a shell that has a different sort of surface on the back. Oh, these are really nice. They're the same size buttons. I was looking within a certain range. All right, let's look at both of these with the fabric. Gorgeous, really pretty. Yeah, that's the color. Oh my gosh. Well, these are both so beautiful, but I think this is probably going to be the winner because they are the same size. I can go ahead and make my buttonholes and then use whichever one I want to in the end. I do like to choose buttons at the end when I'm looking at the whole garment. It's kind of more cohesive. I have the buttons here so that we can keep them in mind while we're looking at everything else. I'm kind of waiting for the sun to come out from behind a cloud, but let's just go for it. That's right, I want to put sequins on this coat. These were the sequins that really inspired me, but I only own exactly 3 of them. I like that they're clear, but they're shimmery and iridescent, and I love the contrast to the boucle. Only 3. They can still be in the mix, but obviously they're not going to be a feature. I bought these in Japan in Nippori Textile Town at a store called Furikake. You can see my Japan shopping haul to learn a little bit more about that. But they kind of do the same thing with an even deeper iridescence. I'm not going to open these because they're tiny, but they're sort of clear but with a grayness to them. I think that's good in the mix. Oh, I don't have that many of these, but these are really good. They kind of have a grossness to them, like it's not a well-made sequin. There's something weird about them, and I like that. I like that they have a sort of off texture. I bought these to use on my wedding dress, and I ended up using the same sequin but in white, and this is really perfect in the mix because, again, it's sort of a clear, but it has a darkness to it. Dark clear. Static electricity. I'm really prone to static. Oh, these are just essential. I've owned this bag of sequins since college. They've been in a lot of moments of my life. These could be in there too. Same with these. They're a little bit bigger, clear flower. These are on my wedding dress. I think the green is needed to tie in the green flash of this iridescence. And then I think to sort of offset that, an occasional peach, right? And then let's see. This I think is a cool material, but I actually really dislike the shape of it. It looks like an alien's head to me. Not into it. Yes. Maybe. These have a gemstone shape, and I like that everything is more floral. So I think this might be too geometric, but I'm gonna keep it out. These are from my friend Rosemary. I believe she bought these in India, and they're like outrageous. They're so good. They look amazing when you put a bead in the middle because they have this like dip in them. The texture of this is not really showing in video, but these are so insane looking that your eye cannot look away, and I think it weirdly detracts from the others, but maybe just occasionally. Okay, now if you're like, Martha, you're crazy. This is a weird idea. Like, I get it, I hear you. It is a little impractical, but I want it to look like snow falling on my shoulders. So I want it to be dense at the shoulder and then lighten up, sort of ombre to nothing as it goes down the coat. Okay, so like, do you see the vision or is it too crazy? Leave me a comment. Only if you believe in it. Just kidding. Say what you want. Anyway, my point is, I think it would be like not the collar, but denser at the shoulder and then sort of ombre and stop about here. So where your hand goes into the pocket would be free, and on the sleeve, like your cuff would be free. I think having sequins at the shoulder is like not great for your handbag, but like, that's fine. I like to carry a little, like a little purse. I can work around that issue. Anyway, that's my vision for this fabric and for this project. Oh, and I meant to show you, I do think that this color lining, like, you get it. I know you get it. This video started so serious, and then at the end, I'm just like throwing sequins in the air, but that's kind of how I roll. Thank you so much for joining me for part 1 of sewing a winter coat. My next installment will be looking at the pattern and the pattern tissue and the instructions. And even if you don't have my pattern, I know you don't, you can still go along with any other pattern. I'm basically going to be talking about where I'm going to follow the instructions and where I'm going to deviate, either because I think I know better or I think there's a better way to do things. That's the same thing, or because I have a different idea for like the appearance of something, like a design decision versus a technique decision. I'm also going to check and see if I need to make any pattern modifications, talk through that. And I'm going to show you the books that I like to have on hand for referencing when I'm working on this kind of project, so that if I get to a point where the instructions fall short, I have another resource I can turn to that I believe in and trust. I think books are very good for sewing. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you for joining me. And if you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. I love chatting with you guys and sharing with you what I'm working on. It's been so fun. And I don't know, maybe like one other person will also make a coat with me. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye.